Welcome to another inspiring episode of the Elite Expert Insider Podcast. Hosts Melanie Johnson and Jen Foster are the owners of Elite Online Publishing. They're both Wall Street Journal, USA Today best-selling authors. We're really glad you're here because this podcast was designed for you. Meet industry experts that share their secrets and strategies. Get successful results for your business in money, relationships, health, and your life. Each episode is going to inspire you to take action towards reaching your greatness.
Hey everyone, welcome to our latest podcast. I'm here with my co-founder of Elite Online Publishing, Jen Foster. How you doing, Jen?
I'm doing great. How's everyone today?
I hope everyone's doing wonderful. So today we are talking about marketing, which is one of my favorite topics. I'm always interested in new ways to market, new ways to look at marketing, how to close those sales, right? How to get from people knowing about you, liking you, trusting you, and then actually wanting to buy from you. And I heard a new term today called demand generation marketing, which I had never heard before. So we have the expert on that. She is the CEO of Growth Mode Marketing. She has been on a mission to learn everything about B2B marketing, but she promises me it'll work for B2C marketing as well. So we're going to dive into her expertise about marketing, demand generation, content marketing, automation, everything marketing today. So if you're interested in marketing, you are in the right place. Deanna Shimota, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, tell us, Deanna, how you got into marketing and how you started this company.
Yeah. So, I started my marketing journey back in college. I'm one of those rare marketers who actually majored in marketing in college and have worked my entire career mostly on the corporate side in marketing roles at B2B organizations. And my last stop on the corporate side, I was a VP of marketing at a network security software company, helping them with their high growth mission. And I was really struggling to find a marketing agency out there that understood where I was coming from as the leader of marketing, who had a heavy weight on my shoulders to deliver more revenue for the organization and to help the organization grow rapidly because they were private equity backed. There was an expectation of, you're going to grow rapidly within a few years. We're going to go and sell this company. Everyone's going to get their money and then some out of it. And then you're going to move on to the next thing. So I was going out to agencies, talking to them, and, I was in the B2B space. So I was looking for agencies specifically on the B2B front. And I was really struggling to find an agency that understood, because I would go and talk to them and they're like, I would say, I need leads. I need them yesterday. And they're like, let me tell you how we're going to build this beautiful brand experience for you. And I'm like, okay, you're not hearing me. I'm a marketer. I totally understand the value of brand. And, I'll even talk about it, how it fits into demand generation. But it wasn't the conversation that I needed to be having with them. And so I was like, God, I cannot find an agency that understands organizations that are in high growth mode, specifically in the B2B space, and how to build that growth engine for them. So ultimately, where I landed today, for the last 8 years, I've had Growth Mode Marketing. I founded that with a former business partner, and we built that out specifically to work with organizations that have that high growth mission.
That is a wonderful journey. And it's so true. Branding to me is so different than the marketing and lead generation, putting the message out there, branding, making sure you look right, making sure your message is cohesive and everything it's like designing the interior of a house, right? When you walk in, it makes you feel good and it kind of gives you the message of the company, but generating those leads is a totally different thing. So let's get into this demand marketing and how do you close the gap between marketing and sales through this strategy? And give us your definition of demand generation marketing so we know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's a great question because, in the B2B space, probably not so much in the B2C space, but you'll hear marketers talk about lead generation. You'll hear them talk about demand generation. And a lot of people think that's the same thing. Either way, I'm trying to grow my revenue and grow my business. And the way I look at it, lead generation and demand generation are actually very different marketing strategies. With lead generation, your marketing programs are only focusing on capturing the companies that are in market to buy right now. And, the reality is statistically, only 5% of companies at any given time are actually in market to buy. When the economy is tight and companies are pulling back, which we're seeing a lot of right now, especially in the technology space, and I think, broader across the economy, they're spending less money, they're investing less in bringing in vendors. That reality is now there's only 1% of companies that are in market to buy. And with lead generation, you're going out and you're asking your prospects for a meeting and you're trying to pull them into your sales process.
Exactly.
The flip side, demand generation has a focus in driving value, not just with the 5% or the 1% that are currently in market to buy, but also the 95% who are not looking to buy right now. It's really about building brand awareness and trust to create the demand and ultimately capture it. Because if they don't know you exist, you're never going to make their short list. They're not going to buy from you. And on the flip side, because you're building these strategies out to market to people, not just who are in market today or companies, but you're looking at the people and the organizations that are also not in market, you're building a strategy so prospects are actually asking you for a meeting instead of you asking them for a meeting. And they're inviting you into their buying process instead of you trying to pull them into their sales process.
I see that it's really about you helping them figure out how to increase the demand so that you're not just trying to gather leads and leads and leads for only to convert 5%, but to actually increase the demand so you can get 95%.
So is it really education then too? Like you're educating the audience?
I think absolutely. It's about building that trust with the audience, right? So they're not looking to buy today. And the reality is, like, especially if you're selling something that's very expensive, like a technology solution, you're not going to convince them to buy if they're not already in market. Now, on the B2C side, that's a different story because, if you're selling a product that's $100, they might see an ad and you might actually convert them, but they have to know you exist, right, in order to do that. So there's still some elements of demand generation that I think you can take away from this. And when I look at it, the way people are buying today, and these statistics are specifically for B2B, but I think there's a lot of this happening in B2C too, is that we're moving towards the reality that, for B2B buyers, they've completed up to 80% of their purchase decision process through digital avenues before they choose to engage with a sales rep. And 72% of B2B buyers have said they would prefer to have zero interactions with a sales rep during the purchase process. And it's taking a ridiculous amount of touches from a marketing standpoint before they're willing to engage with a company. And even if you flip that over on the B2C side and you think about it, I mean, there's a reason companies like Carvana came up with a car vending machine, right? Because people want this kind of touchless experience. Like, I want to buy. I don't want to walk in your store and have the sales rep come up to me immediately and start asking to help me. Like, leave me alone, right? Like, a lot of people feel that way. That's the same in the business world, from a marketing standpoint. Yes, you're selling a lot of times much more expensive things than you might be selling on the consumer side, but we're all consumers at heart, right?
I think that's interesting in the way, like, we have our business is a high ticket item. When you publish with us, we're 5 figures up to 6 figures to do what we do with our clients. And we're finding that a lot of people, the more we put out on YouTube of educating people of our process and the benefits and all that thing, that it's cutting that process down of when they come to us, they're really ready to work with us. But when you're telling a business that you need to, build this brand, what ways are you telling them to reach out? Is it by videos? Is it just by posting on social media? Is it email campaigns? I mean, what seems to be the most effective way to reach these people, to reach the band to buy their technology or whatever they're selling?
It's really going to depend on the audience and who your ideal customer profile is. But I think if you step back and you think about, okay, we know that people are doing a lot of self-research online before they make purchase decisions, whether it's B2B or B2C. That means your digital footprint needs to be your best sales rep. And that example you give, Melanie, with the content that you're putting out there, I mean, that is demand generation in action, because they're going and they're consuming your content and they're getting an idea of, okay, we like Elite Online Publishing. We like what they're saying. By the time they come to you, if they've made 80% of that decision, you're going to have a much shorter sales cycle. You're going to have higher win rates with these individuals that you're talking to, which is what every company wants, is more leads that are better qualified and ready to buy, right? And so when you think about building out that demand generation engine, at my company, Growth Mode Marketing, when we work with clients, we will tell them, okay, there's 3 pillars to building out a demand generation engine. The first is strategy, the second is content, and the third is distribution. With the strategy, you've got to build out an ideal customer profile. And that is really like, who are the best fit companies, or if you're B2C, the best fit consumers to be building your marketing around. You've got to build out a unique point of view where your story challenges thinking, and especially like in B2B, I would say that's the case, because if you're in a very crowded market and there's a lot of competitors, in the buyer's mind, it's a sea of sameness. Everyone starts to sound the same, right? And so if you've got this unique point of view in the story and it's very targeted to your ideal customer profile, you start to resonate more with them, and you give them a reason to want to follow along your content and continue to consume it, because they need to consume a lot of content to build that trust with you, right? From a content perspective, it's really building out what we call cornerstones and cobblestones of content. So you're looking at what are these key topics that are, again, sort of pillars for you that fit each stage of the funnel and that come in all kinds of different formats. And so like a cobblestone, let me back up, a cornerstone piece of content is actually what you would think of like a big piece of content. So for example, your podcast series, I would call that cornerstone content. You can turn that into cobblestones to make that content go farther by taking the videos and the audio and creating, short clips for social media, having social media posts, creating articles, repurposing the content over and over, because having those different formats means that you're having bite-sized pieces of content. So even if someone doesn't spend the 20 minutes to watch or listen to your episode, or they don't watch everyone, they're still consuming bits and pieces of information that you're putting out there, and over time building up that knowledge base for your organization. And then we look at distribution as the third pillar, and that's really, how do you get the content out in front of the audience that is your ideal customer profile? So you've built all this great content. If no one sees it, it's a lot of time and money you've put into it, and it's frustrating because it's like, I've got really good content. Nobody's watching it. Nobody's listening to it. Nobody's reading it. So the distribution pillar, there's 3 things we look at under that. 1, your website. That's your digital storefront. Have good content on there. And what I mean by that is start to create things like content loops in there. So if somebody lands on your website and they're looking at your content, they don't just look at one piece, bounce, go back to Google, search, and go into the next one. You want to keep them on your website. Like, you want them to find the information that they're looking for, if they're your ideal customer profile, and keep consuming that content and keep going deeper into that, and they might be coming there because they're top of funnel and they're just, at that brand awareness phase and they're looking for best practices and tips, or they might be coming there to dig a little deeper and they want to know things like, who have you worked with? What are the features and functionality of the products and services that you offer? How much does it cost? All of those different things. So you want to think about the fact that not everybody that comes to your website is ready to buy today, and not everyone that comes to your website is there just to read best practice tips, right?
Yeah. Would you say with the distribution, like I know a lot of people are always like, well, where do I put my stuff? Like, do I put it on LinkedIn? Do I put it on TikTok? Like, and I know it has to do with your audience, but do you recommend them putting it everywhere or just where their audience is?
That is a great question, Jen. So that kind of second avenue under distribution is managed channels. And what that is, the channels where you can control what is put out and when. And it's really about how do you build your own audience. And I think, yes, to your point, it depends on the client where you want to put it. What you really want to look at is if you've done your research and defined your ideal customer profile, where you put that content should be where they are going to consume content. So if you're just creating, going back to your podcast series, you're creating all of these cornerstone and content cobblestone pieces and putting them out there, and you're like, we're on TikTok, we're on YouTube, we're on our website, we're also putting them over here. If none of your ideal customer profile goes there, it's kind of a wasted effort, right? Because again, if they don't see your content, it's not working for you. But if you find out they're hanging out somewhere you didn't expect, like, it's good to know that. And so I always recommend, and like when we do ideal customer profile work with clients, we'll talk to people that actually fit that ideal customer profile. And we'll say, where do you go to self-educate? How do you research when you're going to buy something? Where are the places that you go to consume information? That's where you should be putting things from your managed channels, and I look at managed channels as these are the content pieces where you can decide what you publish, when, and you control the timing of it and how often you do it. So think about beyond your website, social media, podcast episodes, webinar series, email campaigns, digital advertising. You have control over all of those. And the point of putting them out there is you want people to consume them. You want them to want more from you. That third avenue under distribution is third-party channels. And that is looking at your content and your message and how do you tap into other audiences that already exist that are relevant to your ideal customer profile. So let's say you're talking to your ideal customer profile and they tell you that they go to these industry conferences and they follow this industry influencer and they read this magazine within the industry. Then look at ways that you can tap into that to get your story across. And some of it, sometimes you don't have to pay anything to do it. Sometimes it's a pay for play, even if the consumer, that's reading it or watching it or listen to it doesn't realize that you paid for it. Those third-party channels add a level of credibility for you, in addition to helping you expand reach as you're trying to build your own audience that wants to consume your content.
Sometimes when you're starting from scratch, or even if you're in business, but you haven't done much social media, some people are like, you're just shooting in the dark, right? You're trying these, you haven't really done research. And tell us about keeping track of the metrics of it and getting your ROI on it. Because sometimes you're like, well, I'm throwing all this stuff out there. We were just saying the other day, like someone in a group that Jen was in, she put something about a book, got all this response, and Jen put it out there and they took her off. So it's like, you just don't know. We're like, what's up with that? So, how do you, judge what is good and what you should be looking for as a response to the outreach and the distribution?
Right. I think you have to look at like the indicators on things. As marketers, and I'm sure this is the case in B2C as well, but for B2B, we've kind of been pounded into our heads, like you have to come forward with metrics, you have to validate what you're doing is working, and then that's where you invest all your money. So things like digital advertising end up getting a lot of dollars because it's easy to prove whether that worked or not. The reality is the way people buy, they're not just seeing a digital ad, unless maybe B2C. I mean, I'm guilty of buying way too many things that I see an ad for off of Instagram, but on the B2B side, for sure, and higher end consumer or higher cost consumer items is probably the case as well. You didn't just see that ad and say, I'm going to buy it, right? Like you did your research, you probably had multiple touch points, you've been looking at it for a while. I know people, even if they're buying a $50 pair of pants, they had multiple touch points before they decided to pull the trigger on that, right? So I think you've got to be careful with the metrics in thinking that if I can measure it and I can see it, this is the one thing that drives it. Knowing how people buy and how companies buy, I think you've got to, one, if you are in the B2B space and even B2C, ask them, how did you learn about us? So they're telling you, instead of you trying to track it and be like, oh, they came in via this digital ad. That was the last touch point. That's when they raised their hand. But they may actually tell you, I've been listening to your podcast for a year. That was the real factor, right? And you want to be able to understand that and know that, because, I have a podcast too. It feels like you're talking into this vast void, right? And you're like, okay, I can see downloads. I don't know how many of these people actually listen. I assume there's people that don't download it that listen, right? Like, it's a lot of work to put on a podcast and to create all those cobblestones from it, and an investment in time and resources to do it. A lot of companies would look at that and be like, we can't measure that success. Therefore, it must not be working, right? If you ask for that self-attribution, that's one way to be able to do that. But I also think if you're looking at tactics where you can't easily measure it, you can do micro measurements to kind of see. So for example, like if you're testing different messaging, doing email campaigns and digital ads to see which one people seem to react to more, like you can kind of see in micro increments, like, seems like people respond to this one. This is great. Let's lean into this. Or they're not responding as much. Let's not lean into it. And I think sometimes as marketers, we try to do everything to see what sticks, to your guys' point. And then you don't do anything well, right? And sometimes we just have to pick a few things and do them really well and have the patience to let them work. Because you take a podcast, slow burn. You don't just launch a podcast, unless you're a big celebrity or have major dollars behind you and suddenly you have hundreds of thousands of listeners. It doesn't work that way for most of us. It's, 6 months down the road, you're like, is this worth it? Are we making the right choice? A year down the road, you're like, okay, I'm starting to hear some things. 3 years down the road, you're like, this is the best decision we ever made, right? Like you have to have the patience, because there is no silver magic bullet. If there was, you wouldn't need marketing agencies and departments to build it out. Like marketing's hard. And figuring out what works is hard. But I think one of the growth killers is not having the patience to really invest in letting something work before you say this didn't work and move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I love how you say it's like, just pick one thing, really do it amazing, do it well, master it, and then move on to the next thing. Get the machine working, right? Then it's kind of on auto most. Get the next one working well. Keep revisiting the other one, make sure it's still working. And the thing, technology changes all the time. So what was working yesterday might not work next week.
Yep. So true.
Yeah. I remember when Clubhouse came on, everyone's like, oh, jump on Clubhouse. It's the new best thing. And then it just died and kind of went away,
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Well, tell us, Deanna, where people can go to find you and get more information about your company.
Yeah, if you're interested in learning more about how to create a catalyst for growth through demand generation, check out Growth Mode Marketing's podcast. It's called The Demand Gen Fix, and it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. I also suggest following me, Deanna Shimota, on LinkedIn, because I regularly post insights and best practices on demand generation. And of course, we provide lots of information on our website, which is growthmodemarketing.com.
Awesome. We'll put those links up in the show notes.
Well, thanks for joining us today. We got tons of knowledge. I took notes as well. I just feel like I get special coaching sessions when we have great guests on. So if you're looking to become an author, and we guarantee you'll be a #1 bestseller, reach out to us at eliteonlinepublishing.com, hit that author submission button, and we'll see if you're a good fit for us. We'll talk to you next time. Have a great week, everybody.
Bye.
Hey, are you looking to increase your revenue, build credibility, and elevate your brand? This podcast is brought to you by Elite Online Publishing, an innovative publishing and full spectrum marketing company. They will publish and market your book to make it a #1 bestseller. Becoming an author is the best way to market your business. So contact them at eliteonlinepublishing.com today. All of their authors become #1 bestsellers.